She was a young woman overcoming obstacles.
She had these cognitive challenges that created some difficulties, but she graduated from high school.
She's just a woman who was looking for love.
And she'd finally found it.
He is giving her some sincere attention.
She's found someone that accepts her.
Somebody who really sees her.
But her happiness would be short-lived.
She had been beaten up.
How many people jumped on her? I can't remember.
Was it simply because she was different?
She had developmental delays.
She didn't speak up for herself.
She was bullied throughout her lifetime.
Or had her desire for love lured her into a trap?
Someone took total control of their life.
And she wasn't the only victim.
That's what I feel like. Torture.
Her situation was similar. Not only is he a serial abuser, he is a chronic liar.
There are monsters out there in the world.
September 7th, 2014. It's a quiet Sunday evening in Lumberton, North Carolina, a town of only 20,000, 2.5 hours southeast of Charlotte.
Lumberton is very rural. It's in the southeastern part of North Carolina. There's a lot of good in Lumberton.
Everybody knows each other. And when things go down, news travels.
And the 911 call that comes in at around 5 o'clock is sure to get everyone talking.
Robeson County 911, do you need an ambulance or the law?
Ambulance.
The caller is 29-year-old Christopher Lennon.
My girl is not waking up.
He says he's found his girlfriend, Princess Powell, unresponsive in their living room.
You say she's not waking up?
No.
He doesn't have a working cell phone, so he went next door to use the phone to make the 911 call.
Okay. Okay, stay on the line.
After dispatching first responders to Chris and Princess's address, the operator tries to get some preliminary information.
Do you know if she's breathing?
I don't know.
Christopher was hysterical. And based on what he tells the dispatcher, it's easy to see why.
She's breathing about 2 months.
Princess Powell was a lovable soul who had faced unique challenges in her young life.
She did have special needs, which set her apart a little bit.
Her level of thinking was probably about 5 or 6 years behind of what her actual age is. Talking about baby dolls or just talking about things that you expect a typical 9 or 10-year-old to discuss and not a 16 or 17-year-old.
Which sometimes caused problems for the teenager.
As far as princes and all kids that's in that bracket, the biggest challenge for them is peer pressure.
She was one of the people that was bullied throughout her lifetime.
And then when you fall within that spectrum, then you only want acceptance. So I think Prince's biggest challenge is I just want to be treated like an individual. I want to fit in.
Princess did finish high school, but soon faced a new challenge.
She became pregnant.
She might not understand the future ramifications of that. But in the right now, I could see her smiling and just, everybody she ran across, she's probably was rubbing her belly and saying, I'm pregnant.
But reality soon intervened.
After she gave birth to her oldest child, she gave her parents custody.
With her challenges, she wouldn't have been able to do everything as a mother. So like in the middle of the night when a child wake up, she may need to warm a bottle or diaper change. She would have needed that assistance or someone to help her to be able to understand that. This is a real live baby. It's not a baby doll.
Although her parents had legal custody and responsibility of her son, Princess remained in his life.
She still lived with her parents.
She was able to spend time with her son.
Her mom and stepdad make sure the child is well cared for.
But the experience left Princess wanting more from life.
She's just a woman who was looking for love.
Sometimes we need to be reminded that just because someone has special needs, that doesn't mean that they can't have secure attachments.
And in 2011, at 18 years old, she finally found it when she met Christopher Lennon.
He was 8 years older than her.
To an 18-year-old that might have been impressionable and looking for love, not even considering having special needs, I could see where Princess might have thought he might have been her saving grace, very knowledgeable and more established. That would have been very appealing.
That's especially true considering the bullying she experienced as a teen.
Here, Christopher comes along and is not one of those bullies. And he is giving her sincere attention. For someone like Princess with those cognitive struggles, that will make her feel like, whoa, I have found my soulmate. Finally, I found somebody who really sees me.
You're so beautiful.
She feels a sense of belonging, a sense of security.
She seemed genuinely happy with him.
The relationship moved quickly.
When people have young love, they go full speed ahead.
Before anybody realized anything, she was packing everything up and moving in with him.
And the following year, she had even more exciting news.
I'm pregnant.
Really?
Yeah.
What better thing to be able to conceive a child with the love of your life, to be able to start fresh.
This was an opportunity to get it right. Another shot at giving birth to a child that she and her partner would love on and raise right there in their home.
And then, less than a year after Princess gave birth to their little boy, the couple was expecting again.
Even if there are some challenges as being a mother, it appears that she is functioning. She's moving on her journey.
But now, Princess's journey appears to be in jeopardy.
Chris called 911 and says he's found Princess unresponsive on their couch.
Do you know if she passed out or what happened?
Then, too distraught to talk, he hands the phone back to his neighbor.
There was no cell phone, no landline in the home. So he went to a neighbor and borrowed their phone.
He said he woke up. She was alive.
Okay. Tell him he needs to calm down.
This was very scary for him.
With first responders on the way, the dispatcher sends Christopher and his neighbor over to the couple's trailer to check on Princess.
Okay, listen, is she breathing? Have him see if she's breathing.
He can feel her breathe.
The answer appears to be no.
Ask him, does he want to try and do CPR?
Nah, I think it's too late for that.
I'm sorry?
I think it's too late for all of that.
The neighbor is someone who used to work at a funeral home.
I think she gone.
And when EMTs arrive on the scene a few minutes later, they confirm it.
They declared her dead.
And it didn't appear that she died from natural causes.
They noticed bruising to her face.
It was clear that she had suffered an assault of some kind.
Major Crimes, we'll need you at this location, please.
In the small town of Lumberton, North Carolina, 21-year-old Princess Powell had overcome numerous obstacles to build a happy home with her boyfriend, Christopher Lennon.
She's found someone that accepts her for who she is.
They had a child together, and another one on the way.
But now, first responders have declared Princess dead and requested homicide detectives at the scene.
Major Crimes, we're going to need you at this location.
She had bruising about her face, a lot on her right side and above her eyes.
In addition to the bruising, there was also evidence of blood coming from her nose.
Detectives are also able to determine that Princess has been dead for some time.
She was cold and rigor mortis was setting in.
Looking around the house, the detectives find traces of blood.
You had blood that was in the bathroom of the residence. You had blood that was in the kitchen.
There was blood on the refrigerator door, along the walls, even on the cabinets.
Unsure where and how the attack on Princess occurred, the detectives turn to her boyfriend Chris to see what he can tell them.
Thank you, officer. Thank you. We appreciate it very much.
All right, come with us.
On the scene, he was very friendly, very cooperative.
Just have a seat for us, Chris.
What about all the marks on her? Bruises and stuff on her face?
Chris then indicated they had left the night before around midnight, 1 a.m., walking towards the BP near their home.
She like walking all the time, man. We'd be bored at the house.
He and Princess walked down, made a purchase, and then began walking back home. As they got close to the residence, a vehicle pulled up and several females exited. He seen the females walking towards Princess.
Look who we got here.
So he goes and runs for cover.
Oh, baby, let's go.
I mean, what could I do?
And he assumed Princess had been right behind him.
I told her to come on.
Christopher says he hid. And when he heard the car pull away, he'd emerged to find Princess lying on the ground.
He sees that
You okay, baby?
she has been beaten.
I guess she couldn't keep up or something.
You okay? God, you hurt.
She says she's okay, and they proceed to go home.
Look, let's get you home. Come on.
Back at the house, Princess cleaned herself up.
Which could explain the spots of blood in the kitchen and bathroom.
She's able to collect herself to the point that he says she's acting normal.
But Christopher says that as the evening went on, he became increasingly concerned about Princess and their unborn child.
At some point, she ends up in the bathroom for an hour.
Babe. Babe.
He thought that it possibly could have been a miscarriage because she was in there for so long.
Princess.
He was able to convince her to allow him into the bathroom, and he helped her off the toilet and back to the living room onto the sofa.
But after he got her settled on the couch, things still didn't seem right.
She sat up there talking out of her mind.
Want to go to the emergency room?
I think I just need to rest.
Okay.
I told her lay down, maybe she'll feel better.
But in hindsight, that was a mistake.
I woke up this morning and I looked at her like that and I said, oh.
Princess! Princess,
It
wake
was
up!
possible that her head injury was more serious than she had realized.
I mean, I was just in shock.
Chris is still in such shock that when the detectives turn back to the women that attacked Princess, there's little he can tell them.
He couldn't give us the color or the make of the vehicle.
They couldn't describe any of the women except for that they were Black.
It was dark last night, man.
And the person who could help detectives the most is dead.
It's entirely possible that Princess knew her attackers.
Back during her school days, she was bullied.
Is it possible some of her bullies came back?
Or is Chris not being as forthcoming with the detectives as he appears?
He abandoned his pregnant girlfriend while she was being sought.
When police press Chris about his relationship with Princess, he says things are great between them.
He denied that there was any type of problems within the relationship.
There's no arguments. There's no fights. There's no issues whatsoever.
But there was something weighing on them.
He said that a few months earlier, the state had taken custody of their oldest child.
He couldn't really communicate to the police why that happened.
Although he hinted that it could have had something to do with Princess's disability.
They've been coming to the house, well, for our visitations.
They were working very hard at getting their child back.
They were getting through that. And this new baby that was on the way was going to make things even better.
Coming out.
After finishing up with Christopher at the crime scene, the detectives go to inform Princess's family of the devastating news.
They're distraught that their princess is gone.
And when the detectives relay what Christopher told them, her parents struggle to make sense of it.
They described her as a very mild-mannered, very loving, very easy to get along with person.
However, her parents admitted that Princess could have run into trouble in the past year.
Why do you say that?
Well, we really haven't been in touch with her.
Once she started living with Chris, the family really stopped seeing her, stopped being able to communicate with her.
That raised an immediate red flag for detectives.
Dictating who you can and cannot communicate with. That's one of the primary signs of control and abuse.
Princess Powell's family has just told the detectives investigating her murder that they haven't spoken to their daughter in nearly a year.
Her family says that once she got with Chris, that she no longer communicated with them.
He met her right after she graduated from high school, and that's when he began to put a wedge between her and her family and friends.
But they say the real break came once the couple moved in together.
The family really stopped seeing her, stopped being able to communicate with her.
And she even stopped coming by to see her son.
What happened next was even more surprising.
Their disability checks that was coming to them to help support her older son had been redirected back to her.
Why do you think she'd do that?
It wasn't her. It was Chris.
Having special needs sometimes makes a person susceptible to being easily taken advantage of or being easily manipulated.
She also had problems making decisions on her own, and that enabled Chris to take advantage of the situation.
Once he isolated her from the family, knowing Princess, she would not have gone anywhere without his permission.
Okay, but Princess never told you he was abusing her, right?
We suspected it. Yeah.
However, they never were able to confirm because of the lack of contact with her.
But Princess's stepfather says he did see firsthand just how much power Chris had over her.
A month or two ago, I was at the gas station.
And when he saw her, he was shocked to see the condition that she was in.
He notices a black eye on Princess's face.
Princess? He attempted to speak to her, and she just ignored him.
And she walked right by me.
Worried, he'd followed Princess.
He tried to pull her aside in the parking lot and say, hey, you don't have to live like this. Please, come home. We love you. You have options.
But Princess continued to ignore him.
Princess, come on home, baby. We miss you. Princess.
It wasn't long before Chris noticed, of course, and Chris just really went off on her stepfather.
Leave her alone.
He was telling him, I'm tired of seeing you around. You need to stay away.
That was the last time I ever saw her.
You both have our deepest condolences.
Disturbed by what they've learned from the family, the detectives return to the trailer park to talk to Chris and Princess's neighbors.
The neighbors never saw Chris beat Princess, but they did report hearing screams coming from the home where Princess and Christopher were living.
It was a volatile, violent relationship, completely opposite of how Chris described it.
The neighbors also say that Princess was very submissive to Chris.
Several of the neighbors said that anytime you seen them together, he always walked in the front and she walked behind him and would often be seen with her head looking towards the ground. She didn't speak much. If you did try to talk to her, he would take over the conversation.
She was not given permission to speak. She was not encouraged to participate in conversations.
I immediately went to, this was a person who wanted to control her and would not let her be herself.
But it's what their friends and neighbors, Melissa Nichols and Kevin Harris, have to say about the day leading up to the murder that really interests detectives.
Chris had been drinking throughout the day, and they observed Princess walking behind him, and she appeared to be crying at some point.
Now, can you tell us why you think Princess was crying?
He beat the crap out of her, would be my guess.
On several occasions, Chris would tell him about the times that he beat Princess.
Chris was very vocal and very bold about his life with Princess, that he's got a relationship where he's doing what he wants to do.
And what he did most was beat up Princess.
So you saw Chris hit Princess?
Well, not exactly.
But according to Kevin, it wasn't really a secret either.
He told detectives that a couple months prior, they dropped by the trailer to see Chris and Princess.
We never actually saw her that night.
Chris actually told them, she can't come out right now.
He told them, I beat her bad. She looks like a monster.
Two friends of Chris Lennon and Princess Powell have told detectives investigating Princess's murder that Chris admitted to beating her.
They said that they went to the residence to see them, and Princess never came out the back room.
He said that he beat her so badly, she looked like a monster.
He's taken her ice packs and going back and forth to the room to give her something to deal with the swelling, but the friends never got to see her.
So when they got home, they said they called the police.
Law enforcement would actually go out and do a well-being check on Miss Princess.
Did the cops come out?
Yeah, but they didn't do nothing.
She said she was assaulted by someone else.
When pressed by the neighbors who had made those calls, she would admit that Chris had done these things to her, but never to the police.
Oftentimes, victims will protect their abusers because they love their abusers. And I can imagine that Princess felt like she didn't want the love of her life to go to jail for that.
It's very frustrating as an officer because you want to do what's right. But if the victim is not willing to testify, then you can't bring criminal charges.
And now, her friends fear that reluctance had cost Princess her life.
They discussed noise they heard around 2 or 2:30 a.m. on the morning of the incident.
Tell us about these noises that you heard.
She was screaming.
And that was coming from their trailer.
Yeah.
Think about the timeline. That's way different than what Christopher is describing with this brutal attack by a pack of women.
After talking to the couple's friends, the detectives bring Chris in for a formal statement.
Detectives start by going back over what he told them at the scene.
The location that we took the first statement was in my patrol car.
At the beginning of the interview, he was very calm. But as the interview began to unveil his untruthfulness, his whole demeanor changed, his attitude changed. The only person that told me y'all had this great relationship,
Was you. Who? Nobody else don't know us.
The detectives counter by describing what neighbors had told them.
There's one thing other everybody always said. You walk first and she walked behind with her head hanging low.
They also talked about how friends and neighbors said he rarely let Princess speak to them.
That's because she can't talk that good. She can't talk that good? Nah, she can talk. She talk to me fine, but she'll mess up sometimes and she don't want to be embarrassed around somebody.
And when the detectives ask him about the time he'd beaten Princess so badly he'd locked her away so her friends wouldn't see, he denies it completely.
I ain't lock our bedroom's doors don't even lock. How could I lock her in the bedroom?
And then you would treat her with cold rags because you beat her, she looked like a monster, according to what you told this person.
What? I told the person what?
That you beat her so bad he can't see because she like a monster.
No, I did not say that.
He claimed that his neighbors fabricated the whole story.
Me and him done got in fights before. He don't like me.
When the questioning turns to the night of the murder, Chris continues to deflect.
But somebody said that they seen y'all walking from a couple of trailers back over that way last night, and that she was walking behind you crying. That would have been a true statement.
Oh.
They're asking him questions about shrieks and screams coming from the home.
I don't know what you're talking about with that, sir.
So somebody said they heard fighting going on in your house last night. They weren't telling the truth either.
Nope. Nobody want to say that because we don't do stuff like that.
Well, yeah, somebody said that.
Well, if they did, they lied.
Chris is still sticking to his story, in spite of everyone saying the same thing.
He maintained that the death of Princess was a result of her being assaulted as they walked home by several females. You seen the vehicle pull up?
Mm-hmm.
So was it a car or was it a truck?
I say maybe, I can't ever remember, man. So much stuff happened last night, you know.
Chris says all he knows for sure is that he woke up the next morning and Princess was dead.
Princess! I told you what happened. That's what happened.
But as the interview goes on, the detectives have even more reason to suspect that's not the case.
As the truth was being unveiled about him being dishonest in the death of this Princess, he began to get nervous. He would begin to wipe his forehead, state it was hot in the room.
Do you want me to open that door, bro? Maybe to cool off a little bit?
Yeah, but I'm really ready to go because, like I said, I ain't did nothing. I mean, like I said, I don't know why I woke up to my girl like that. I mean, if I would have did something like that, I would have not even tried to make a commitment or anything with coming down here or nothing like that. I would have been trying to get halfway to Mexico right now.
The detectives don't believe him, but they'll need more evidence to charge him.
They have to let him go.
After securing a search warrant, they head back to the couple's trailer.
We return to the scene of Princess' death.
And this time, they bring luminol.
Luminol is the product that, once it's applied, it can show where those blood spots were that you cleaned up.
And once detectives sprayed it inside the trailer, it revealed the truth about Princess's death.
It all had transpired right there.
Detectives in Lumberton, North Carolina, are all but convinced that Christopher Lennon is responsible for the death of his girlfriend, Princess Powell.
All the signs are there that this guy is abusing his partner.
And when the couple's trailer is sprayed with luminol, the signs say he murdered her.
Did actually take place inside the home.
You had blood that was on the hallways, on walls, and there was a large amount of blood in the kitchen area right by the refrigerator.
There was also evidence that Chris had tried to cover up the crime.
You could actually tell where the mop had actually swirled through the blood where he had cleaned up behind himself.
When the detectives returned to the station to review the results of Princess's autopsy, it confirms that she was beaten to death.
The initial autopsy report revealed that her death was a result of blunt force trauma.
She had multiple broken ribs and a punctured lung.
But it could not tell what the blunt force trauma was caused by.
However, the autopsy does show that her death couldn't have been caused by an attack on the side of the road, as Chris claimed.
Her injuries that she sustained were so bad that there was no way that Princess could have made it home.
So the story that Chris painted for the police initially, where she got back to the house, became completely unreasonable and illogical.
We knew that Chris wasn't being truthful.
The autopsy also confirmed that Princess was pregnant.
However, while Chris told detectives she was only 2 months pregnant, the autopsy says otherwise.
She was a lot farther along. The fetus had developed to the point where you could recognize the little fingers and the little toes and the eyes.
With the results of the luminol and the autopsy, the detectives have enough evidence to charge Chris.
He was arrested and immediately taken into custody for the death of Miss Princess and their unborn child.
He's charged with first-degree murder and the felony murder of an unborn child.
But despite the mountain of evidence against him, Chris continues to insist he's innocent.
When Chris was arrested, he doubled down on his story and made no omission of guilt.
News of Chris's arrest comes as the community is still mourning the loss of Princess.
One of the teachers came back the next day and she was like, "You're not going to believe what happened." And she shared with us the unfortunate circumstances of what happened. And that just broke my heart. I probably cried for about 2 or 3 days.
When you have this type of an incident in a smaller community like Lumberton, it affects the entirety of the community.
However, Princess's death also highlights the lack of support available in a small town like Lumberton.
Being in an underserved community that lacks resources, maybe not a lot of education around domestic violence, it's tough enough for an individual to feel like they need to get out of this situation. And if they don't have the means to do it, then they feel like there's no way out. And so they just stay.
Especially in the case of someone like Princess.
For individuals who are special needs, we need to reassure them that you don't have to follow what anybody says. You have a mind of your own, and you pretty much know what right or wrong is.
It's unfortunate that there were not supports available to her.
Because Princess could never break free on her own.
People would notice these marks on her body and would ask her, "Princess, what are these marks on your arm?" And she would always, "Oh, no, you know, I burned myself cooking." She would always provide cover for Chris.
And as the detectives build their case against him, they discover Princess isn't the first woman Chris has abused.
We started interviewing past girlfriends who was connected to Christopher.
That's how the detectives find a woman named Kelly Howell.
And Kelly Howell is a former girlfriend of Christopher.
She felt compelled to come to talk to the detectives.
She understood all too well exactly the life that Princess lived with Chris.
Shortly after Christopher Lennon's arrest for the murder of Princess Powell and her unborn child, a woman named Kelly Howell has come to the station to speak with the detectives working the case.
Kelly Howell is a former girlfriend of Christopher Lennon. How long y'all date?
3 years.
Kelly said that when she heard about Princess's death, she automatically knew in her heart that Chris had caused this young lady's death.
According to Kelly, that's because she knew exactly what Princess had been through.
She stated that Christopher was very, very controlling, and that she was unable to maintain jobs because of his control, his anger.
He was very jealous. If I went around anybody that was a guy, whether I knew him or not, I couldn't speak to him.
If she went to a grocery store and they acknowledged her or call her a name such as babe, she would be beat when she got home.
I had black eyes. He hit me all in the face.
She stated that she experienced several physical assaults.
He held me down, and I remember him asking me questions, and he would burn me, light a lighter and burn me with it. And I still got a scar right there.
She says that Christopher's abuse was so bad that she often feared for her life.
There was times that he would grab me by my throat, and I just wouldn't know if he would let me go in time. But there was plenty of times I thought that I was going to die.
But unlike Princess, she had eventually managed to escape.
Kelly had some freedoms and was able to have some autonomy where Princess did not.
She had the freedom to go to work, to drive.
And one day she left and never looked back.
So he has no contact with her?
No contact.
But when she heard what happened to Princess, Kelly knew she had to come forward.
You know, I swear to God, I heard about this girl being beat to death, found on a couch in that trailer park. He was the first person to come to my head. He was the first person.
The detective has no doubt that Kelly's instincts are correct.
Her situation was similar to Miss Princess's, but I think he learned from her relationship. Princess could not work. She was not allowed to work. She was not allowed to go anywhere. And his first relationship, she got away. And I think this relationship, he wasn't going to let that happen.
And unfortunately, Princess's disabilities made her easier to control.
He knew what women to target, and he actually built his skills from prior relationships.
But no matter how much he honed his manipulation tactics, there was one thing Christopher couldn't change.
Why don't you listen?
He was very easily angered.
And the detectives believe that's what took over him on the evening of the murder.
Chris had been drinking throughout the day, according to witnesses. And I think something triggered him, that evilness that he possessed. And that is when the assault occurred.
Why you made me chase you, huh? Huh? Come on, where you going, huh?
It wouldn't have been unusual for him to beat his partner, to torture this young lady and abuse her. But this time, he went too far. And it cost her life.
However, while the theory explains what happened, it makes securing a murder conviction problematic.
Trying to prove that he intentionally killed Princess was going to be a real challenge.
Was this just another episode of him getting a little heated, abusing her some, but not to the point of death?
As a result, the prosecutors work out a plea deal.
His charges were reduced to second-degree murder.
He's also allowed to enter what's known as an Alford plea.
Which means that he's not admitting that he committed this second-degree murder, but he acknowledges that, yeah, they got enough evidence against me to convict me.
In exchange for his plea, Chris receives a sentence of 31 years in prison.
I'm satisfied because it is 30 plus years that a female on this earth will not be assaulted by Christopher Lynn and his evilness.
However, many who knew Princess feel as though it still falls short of justice.
We're talking about an individual and an unborn child. So in actuality, you took the life of two people, not one. Is 30 years enough? I don't think so.
But no matter what they think of the plea deal, everyone agrees that what happened to Princess was an unspeakable tragedy.
What really bothers me about what has happened here is we're supposed to be a small, close-knit community. We say it takes a village. Here's someone over here suffering that really needs our help. And we really let her down.
To take advantage of anyone is bad, but to specifically target people such as Princess is even worse.
There are monsters out there in the world, and it just breaks my heart. The world lost a bubbly, energetic human being.
He took the life of someone who was loved, a person who was fragile and timid, but was loved.
Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.
Echoes of the Gavel, Tales from the Bench. Chapter 1, The Weight of 17 Years. 17 years is not just a measure of time, it is an era. For April Johnson, 17 years was the rhythm of her heart walking on for pause. His name was Ice. He was a Jack Russell Terrier mixed with a Schnauzer, a 40-pound bundle of weary gray and light fur that had slowly faded into the frosted white of old age. He had been with April through the shifting seasons of her life, a silent, steadfast witness to her joys and a sponge for her tears. But on a damp, gray Friday in April, the rhythm stopped. April sat on the worn linoleum of her kitchen floor, cradling Ice's stiffening body in her lap. The house was suffocatingly quiet. There was no click-clack of nails on the hardwood, no raspy breaths from the dog bed in the corner, just a profound, crushing void. "My baby," she whispered, her voice cracking, rocking back and forth. "My sweet boy." She knew this day was coming. Ice had been sick, his senior body failing him day by day. But knowing the storm is coming never truly prepares you for the devastation of the wreckage. April reached for her phone with trembling hands. She had a plan for this. She had always promised Ice he would be cremated, placed in a beautiful urn, and kept on the mantle where the morning sun hit. She dialed the number for Faithful Friends Cremation Service. "I'm so sorry for your loss, ma'am," the compassionate voice on the other end said. "Unfortunately, because it is Friday afternoon, our drivers are already off duty for the weekend. We cannot perform a home pickup until Monday." Panic spiked in April's chest. Monday. But I can't keep him here until Monday. What do I do? You can take him to an emergency veterinary center, the representative advised. They have facilities to hold the remains over the weekend, and our driver can pick him up from there on Monday morning. April hung up, the reality of the situation bearing down on her. She couldn't lift ice. At 40 pounds of dead weight, he was too heavy for her frail arms to carry to a car she didn't even have access to at the moment. She needed a favor. A big one. She scrolled through her contacts, her eyes blurring with tears, until she landed on Joel Clocky. Joel was her neighbor. They weren't exactly close friends. They didn't share backyard barbecues or deep secrets, but they were neighborly. He had given her rides to the store in the past, and he had a sturdy pickup truck. Wiping her eyes, she hit call. Across the street, Joel Clocky was wiping grease off his hands with a rag. He was a pragmatic man, a guy who worked hard, kept his head down, and valued his free time. When his phone buzzed and he saw April's name, he sighed, expecting a request for a lift to the grocery store. Hello. Joel, April sobbed, the sound raw and broken. It's ice. He's gone. Joel's posture softened. He had a dog of his own. He knew the bond. Oh, April, I'm so sorry. Joel, I need a favor. I can't keep him in the house over the weekend. I need someone to take him to the Blue Pearl Emergency Vet. Faithful friends will pick him up Monday. Please, Joel, I don't have anyone else. It was a massive request. Handling the remains of a beloved pet is a heavy, emotionally taxing burden. But Joel, fundamentally a decent man, couldn't say no to the sobbing woman across the street. I'll be right over. April. When Joel arrived, the smell of death was already beginning to mingle with the scent of April's lavender air freshener. He brought a large, heavy-duty blanket. April was a wreck, hovering over the dog. Take him to Blue Pearl, she instructed, her voice shaky. Here is the address. Tell them faithful friends will come Monday. Okay, Joel said softly. He bent down, wrapping the heavy blanket around the terrier mix. As he hoisted the 40-pound weight into his arms, April grabbed his sleeve. Wait, before they take him, I want his collar and a piece of his hair, please. Joel nodded. I'll get it. Joel loaded the dog into his truck, the solemnity of the task pressing down on him. He drove across town to the Blue Pearl Clinic. The waiting room was bright, sterile, and buzzing with the chaotic energy of emergency vet medicine. Joel waited his turn, then approached the receptionist. I need to drop off a deceased animal, Joel explained, keeping his voice low. The owner arranged for faithful friends to pick him up on Monday. The receptionist typed rapidly on her keyboard. All right. We can hold him in cold storage because he was dead on arrival, and we are acting as a holding facility for a private cremation where the owner keeps the ashes. The fee must be paid in full upfront. It will be $532.25. Or, if it's just a communal cremation holding, it's $175. Which did she want? Joel froze. She didn't give me any money. She just said drop him off. I'm sorry, sir. We cannot accept the remains without payment. Joel stepped outside into the chilly April air, pulling out his phone. He dialed April's number. It rang to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. He stood by his truck, looking at the bundle in the back. He was a working man. He didn't have $500 or even $175 to front for a neighbor's dog. He waited for 30 minutes. He called 3 more times. Nothing. April, consumed by grief and medication to calm her nerves, was fast asleep, her phone silenced. Joel ran a hand through his hair. He couldn't leave the dog in his truck all weekend. He couldn't bring it back to April's house. It would destroy her. He had to make a command decision. He climbed back into the truck and drove. 3 miles away lay a sprawling local park, bordered by dens, quiet woods. Joel parked his truck near the tree line. He reached into the bed, pulled out the dog's collar, and clipped a small tuft of the weary gray hair, placing them carefully into a Ziploc bag he found in his glove box. Then he grabbed a shovel from his truck bed. For an hour, Joel Clockey sweated in the damp woods. He dug a deep, respectful grave beneath the roots of an old oak tree. It was hard labor, but he did it with a strange sense of reverence. He gently placed the blanket-trapped dog into the earth and covered him up, patting the dirt flat. He's in a better place, Joel thought. It's a good spot. 2 days later, the storm broke. April had finally called Blue Pearl to confirm the pickup, only to be told they had no record of a dog named Ice. Frantic, she called Joel. When he explained what had happened, the unanswered calls, the burial in the park, April's grief mutated into a blinding, white-hot rage. You buried my child in the dirt, she screamed into the phone. April, I didn't have the money. You didn't answer. I want him cremated. You take me to his grave right now. You get a shovel. You dig him up. And we take him to the cremation service. Joel stared at his phone in disbelief. The exhaustion of the favor, the physical toll of digging the grave, and the sheer audacity of the demand snapped his patience. I am not digging up a dead dog. April, you're acting crazy. He hung up. In her living room, April clutched the Ziploc bag containing Ice's collar and hair, the only things Joel had successfully brought back. Her heart felt like it had been shredded. She didn't see a neighbor who had tried his best in a bad situation. She saw a man who had discarded her child in a nameless field. I'll sue him, she whispered to the empty room. I'll make him pay. Chapter 2. The Midnight Drift. Across town, in a sleeker, more modern part of the city, Daniel Druss sat in his gleaming Tesla, tapping his fingers against the steering wheel. Daniel was a man who liked order, success, and the finer things in life. But he also had a soft spot, one that occasionally blurred his better judgment. A year prior, Daniel had met Timothy DeHorst on a dating app. The romance had fizzled quickly, but they had transitioned into a strange, slightly unbalanced friendship. Timothy was the opposite of Daniel, always scrambling, always a step behind, working multiple jobs just to keep his head above water. In May of 2022, Daniel's mother had gifted him a 2007 Honda Civic. It wasn't fancy, and it had a battery that occasionally needed a jump start, but it ran. Daniel kept it as a backup for his delivery business. In March, Timothy's life had hit a wall. His old car died, leaving him stranded and unable to get to his two jobs. Daniel, feeling a mix of pity and lingering affection, made an offer over text. "I can tell you're in a bad situation right now," Daniel typed. "I don't mind letting you use the Honda. Let's do this for a week, and then we will either work out a different arrangement financially, or I'll just take it back." Timothy was ecstatic. "Thank you. Man, you're saving my life," he had told Daniel when he picked up the keys. But gratitude is a fragile thing, easily warped by desperation. It was a Tuesday night, exactly 2 weeks after Timothy had taken the Honda. The week-long agreement had silently stretched, as these things often do when one party is too tired to ask for the car back and the other is too reliant to return it. Timothy was exhausted. His bones ached. He had spent the evening at his second job, sitting through hours of monotonous onboarding and training videos in a windowless room. After that, he had to run errands, groceries, laundry detergent, the mundane chores that keep a life from falling apart entirely. By midnight, he was finally heading home. The road was a dark ribbon stretching through the suburbs. The heater in the Honda was blowing warm air, creating a cozy, hypnotic cocoon. Timothy blinked. The streetlights seemed to blur into long, glowing streaks. He rolled down the window, letting the cold air hit his face, but his eyelids felt like they were lined with lead. Just 5 more minutes, he thought. Just keep it between the lines. He approached a stop sign. He pressed the brake. And then the world went dark. Timothy didn't intend to fall asleep. It wasn't a choice. It was a physical shutdown. His body simply turned off. His foot slipped from the brake. The Honda, still in drive, rolled silently through the intersection. It drifted, crossing the yellow line, the tires leaving the asphalt and hitting the soft gravel of the shoulder. Crunch! Timothy awoke to violence. The sound of tearing metal and shattering glass filled the cabin. The steering wheel jerked violently in his hands. The car had plunged into a deep drainage ditch, the front end smashing through a heavy wooden fence belonging to a nearby homeowner. The airbags deployed with the concussive force of a gunshot, punching him in the face and filling the car with bitter, white smoke. Coughing, terrified, Timothy kicked the door open and stumbled out into the damp grass. The Honda's front end was crushed like an accordion. The fence was obliterated. Within minutes, the flashing red and blue lights of a police cruiser illuminated the wreckage. The officer wrote Timothy a ticket for failure to maintain a single lane. Standing by the road, shivering, Timothy felt a profound sense of dread. The car was totaled. It wasn't his, and he had no money to pay for it. In the days that followed, fear mutated into a desperate, defensive fiction. When Daniel called, furious and demanding the $3,600 book value of the car, Timothy panicked. "You can't sue me," Timothy argued over the phone, his voice shaking. "You gave me that car. It was a gift." "A gift?" Daniel scoffed, his voice dripping with icy disbelief. "I let you borrow it to get to work. I have the texts, Timothy." "It was a gift," Timothy repeating the lie until he almost believed it himself. If it was a gift, he wasn't responsible to Daniel. If it was a gift, it was just his own bad luck. Daniel hung up. The next day, he filed the paperwork at the small claims courthouse. Chapter 3. Flight from Oak Haven. Gilbert Keel Jr. was a man who believed in the sanctity of a contract. As a landlord, he provided a service, a roof, for walls, and functioning plumbing, and in return, he expected a check on the first of the month. It was a simple, transactional existence. In February of 2023, he leased a spacious, split-level property to Cynthia and Amber Spradley. The sisters were raising two young children they had recently adopted from the foster care system. Gilbert felt good about renting to them. It felt like providing a stable foundation for a family that needed it. For the first 6 months, things were quiet. The rent was paid. The grass was mowed. But by September, the silence turned ominous. The first of the month came and went. No check, no phone call, no text. Gilbert's property manager, Rakeshia Betts, reached out. The responses she received from Amber were a master class in evasion. "We're holding the rent," Amber texted. "This neighborhood isn't safe for our kids. There's crime. People break into cars. We're moving out." Gilbert was unsympathetic to the excuse. If they want to move, they can move, he told Rakeshia in his office. "But as long as their furniture is in my house, they owe me rent. File the notice to vacate." The legal machinery groaned into motion. The notice was served, demanding they vacate by November 4th. Inside the rental house, chaos reigned. Amber and Cynthia were packing, but not with care. The stress of the impending eviction, the lack of money, and the internal family drama had turned the home into a war zone. Trash piled up in the kitchen. The walls were scuffed. "Just leave it," Cynthia yelled one afternoon, throwing a trash bag into the hallway. "They're kicking us out anyway. Let them deal with the mess." They fled like thieves in the night. By October 26th, Amber called Rakeshia. "We're out. We're gone." The next day, October 27th, Rakeshia drove to the property. She carried a clipboard, her phone for taking video, and a ring of new keys. She stepped up to the front door, inserted her master key, and pushed it open. The smell hit her first a stale mix of fast food, unwashed clothes, and something distinctly sour. "Oh, my Lord," Rakeshia muttered, raising her phone and pressing record. The living room looked as though a tornado had touched down. Debris was scattered across the carpet. But it wasn't just messy, it was violent. The interior door leading to the garage had been kicked off its hinges, the wood splintered and jagged. The drywall in the hallway had a fist-sized hole punched through it. The kitchen counters were sticky with spilled soda, and abandoned, broken furniture littered the dining room. Rakeshia changed the locks, her blood boiling. She immediately sent the video to Gilbert. They trashed it, Gilbert said, his voice deadly calm over the phone. Calculate the damages. We're taking them to court. But the Spradleys weren't quite finished with the house. On November 2nd, Rakeshia's phone buzzed. It was Amber. I need to get back in. I forgot some important documents. I thought we had until the 4th. Rakeshia narrowed her eyes at the text. You told me you were moved out on the 26th. The locks are changed. I misunderstood. Amber pleaded. Please. Against her better judgment, Rakeshia agreed to meet them on November 6th. But Amber didn't show. Instead, a cousin named Crystal arrived, attempting to gain access to the house. The web of lies was tangling. The Spradleys claimed they had abandoned the property in pristine condition in early October, trying to blame the catastrophic damage on a phantom break-in, or perhaps the cousin who had been lingering around. Gilbert compiled the receipts, the cleanup, the drywall repair, the new doors, the lost rent. It totaled $5,800. He filed his paperwork. The trap was set. Chapter 4, The Reckoning. The courtroom was a theater of human folly, illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights and paneled in fox mahogany. The air hummed with the nervous energy of dozens of people holding manila folders, rehearsing their grievances. At the front of the room, elevated behind a heavy wooden bench, sat the judge. She possessed a gaze that could strip the bark off a tree. She did not suffer fools. She did not entertain lies. And she cut to the heart of a matter with the precision of a surgeon. Court, come to order. All rise. Have a seat, please. The bailiff intoned. Case for 1,050. Johnson v. Clocky. April Johnson stood at the plaintiff's podium, Trembling, clutching a tissue, Joel Clocky stood opposite her, looking weary and defensive. The judge leaned forward, peering over her glasses. Ms. Johnson, you're suing your neighbor for $10,000 for emotional distress because he buried your dog in a park instead of taking it to a cremation center. Do I have that right? Yes, Your Honor. April wept. He was my child. He didn't deserve to be thrown in the dirt. The judge listened as the story unfolded. The Friday death, the inability to keep the dog at home, the call for a favor. You asked him to do you a favor, the judge noted. He had to come to your house, lift a dead 40-pound dog into his truck, and drive it to a vet. That is not a little deal. But he didn't follow my instructions. April countered. The judge turned to Joel. Mr. Clocky, why didn't you leave the dog at the clinic? They wanted $530 up front, Your Honor, for the private cremation where she keeps the ashes. She didn't give me a dime. I tried calling her all day. She didn't answer. I couldn't keep a dead animal in my truck all weekend. So I buried him in a nice spot in the woods. I even brought her back the collar and some hair, like she asked. April shook her head. I didn't have the money right then, but he should have told me. He tried to tell you, Madam, you didn't answer the phone. The judge's voice snapped like a whip. She looked down at April, her expression softening just a fraction, shifting from judicial ire to a hard, maternal truth. Ms. Johnson, the judge said slowly, sadness is a much more difficult emotion to deal with than anger. It is easier for you to be furious at Mr. Clocky than to simply sit with the grief that your 17-year-old companion is gone. April sobbed, covering her face. This man, the judge continued, gesturing to Joel, did you a massive favor. He picked up your deceased dog. He drove him across town. When you failed to provide him with the resources to fulfill your specific wishes, he did the most respectful thing he could think of, and you want to punish him with a $10,000 judgment. Unconscionable. You have no case. Case dismissed. Joel exhaled a breath he had been holding for months. April turned away, the anger draining out of her, leaving only the hollow, unavoidable ache of her loss. Case for 1053, Drust v. DeHorst. Daniel Drust stepped up to the podium, his posture rigid with indignation. Timothy DeHorst approached slowly, looking down at his hands. Mr. Drust, you loaned your 2007 Honda Civic to the defendant, and he totaled it. Yes, Your Honor, I loaned it to him so he could get to work. He fell asleep at the wheel and drove it into a ditch. The judge looked at Timothy. Is that true? You fell asleep? Yes, Your Honor, Timothy mumbled. I was exhausted from my second job. And your defense is that the car was a gift? Yes, he gave it to me. The judge raised an eyebrow. Really? Mr. Drust, do you have the text messages? Daniel proudly handed the printout to the bailiff, who passed it up to the bench. The judge highlighted a section and handed it to the bailiff to give to Timothy. Mr. DeHorst read that highlighted section out loud. The part where he allegedly gifts you this vehicle. Timothy swallowed hard. He looked at the paper. The words condemned him. It says, let's do this for a week, and then we will either work out a different arrangement financially, or I'll just take it back. The courtroom was dead silent. Tell me, the judge said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. What word in that sentence suggests he gave you the car? Timothy stared at his shoes. It doesn't. Duh. The judge shot back. You borrowed a car. You were negligent. You destroyed it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,600. Step back. Daniel offered a brisk nod of vindication. Timothy walked away, the weight of his exhaustion now compounded by debt. Case for 1067, Keel v. Spradley. The final reckoning belonged to Gilbert Keel Jr. and the Spradley sisters. Gilbert stood tall, Rakeshia Betts beside him armed with photographs and text logs. Amber and Cynthia Spradley stood together, arms crossed defensively. You moved out and stopped paying rent because you didn't like the neighborhood, the judge summarized. But you left property in the house, and when the landlord regained possession, the place was trashed. We moved out October 4th. Amber insisted loudly. We didn't do that damage. It was an unsafe neighborhood. Anyone could have broken in. Or maybe it was our cousin. Gilbert shook his head. Your Honor, they told my property manager they were out on October 26th. She went in on the 27th. The doors were locked. She had to use a key. This is what she found. The judge examined the photographs, the broken doors, the filth, the punched walls. We had foster kids, adopted kids. Cynthia interjected, playing for sympathy. We had to get them out of there. Having children does not give you the right to destroy someone else's property. The judge fired back. She turned her attention to the text messages between Rakesia and Amber. Let's look at this, the judge said, tracing the lines of text with her pen. On November 5th, well, after you claim you abandoned the property, you text the property manager. I've been super sick. Crystal will come get our stuff at 3:30. If you moved out and took all your belongings on October 4th, why are you arranging for someone to retrieve property from the house in November? Amber stuttered. That was my cousin's stuff, not ours. I was in the hospital. Nonsense, the judge declared, slamming the paperwork down. You are spinning a web of lies to avoid responsibility for destroying this man's house. You made a decision to move into a property. You couldn't keep it up. You trashed it on your way out. And you expect him to foot the bill. The judge picked up her gavel. $5,800. Judgment for the plaintiff. We are done here. Court is adjourned. Chapter 5. The price of a signature. Love makes people do foolish things. It blinds them to the harsh realities of finance, credit scores, and the unforgiving permanence of legal documents. In August of 2021, Kyle Deanhart was hopelessly entangled in the honeymoon phase of his relationship with Tammy Gobo. When Tammy needed a car, Kyle wanted to play the hero. He didn't just offer advice. He opened his wallet. He put down a massive $10,000 cash down payment on a $21,000 used vehicle. Even worse, to secure the financing for the remainder, he co-signed the loan, putting his name on the title alongside hers. It was a grand, romantic gesture. It was also a catastrophic financial mistake. The relationship fizzled out shortly after the ink dried on the contract. The romance evaporated, but the binding legal tie of the auto loan remained. For 3 years, they lived separate lives. Tammy kept the car, diligently making the $216 monthly payments. Kyle watched from afar, his credit score tethered to his ex-girlfriend's financial stability. But in the bitter cold of early 2024, the arrangement fractured. Tammy missed the January payment. Then she missed February. Kyle started receiving the dreaded default notices in his mail. 12 late payment warnings piled up on his kitchen counter, each one a ticking time bomb aimed directly at his financial future. Knowing Tammy's track record and panicked by the prospect of ruined credit, Kyle made a drastic move. In late February 2024, he hired a tow truck and repossessed the car in the middle of the night. I had to cut my losses, Kyle explained to his friends, clutching the keys. She wasn't paying. It's in my name to. I couldn't just let the bank take it and destroy my credit. For the next 6 months, Kyle assumed the burden of the car. He made the $216 monthly payments out of his own pocket to keep the bank happy. Meanwhile, Tammy's life took a tragic but strangely fortunate turn. Her father passed away, leaving her his 2000 for Chrysler convertible. Suddenly, she had a car again, completely free and clear. By October 2024, Kyle was exhausted by the ordeal. He emptied his savings, making a final lump sum payment of $2,247.30 to pay off the car loan entirely. He found a buyer willing to take the car off his hands, eager to finally close this painful chapter. There was just one catch. Because her name was on the original paperwork, he needed Tammy to sign the lien release to transfer the title. Tammy refused. You took my car. Tammy fired back in a text. You sold my dad's old minivan. You kept my stuff. I'm not signing anything. I'm countersuing you for taking it in the first place. The standoff led them directly into the brightly lit arena of small claims court. Case for 1062. Dean Harvey. Gobo. Kyle and Tammy stood at opposing podiums. The air between them crackled with 3 years of unresolved resentment. Evidently, the judge began, looking at the case file with a mixture of exasperation and disbelief. Neither of you watched my courtroom, because the first rule of life is that you are never supposed to cosign a loan for anybody. Kyle shifted uncomfortably. I know that now, Your Honor. The judge turned to Tammy. Ms. Gobo, you are countersuing because he repossessed the car. But by your own admission, you missed 2 months of payments. He was getting default notices. He had every right to repossess it to protect his own credit. I was going to pay it, Tammy protested, and I had put money into that car. I want my money back. Let's look at the numbers. Ms. Gobo,